Hey everybody, I'm Zac.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching Disruptive Investing. Today we have the CEO of Exro, Sue Ozdemir, with us. So let's get right into it. Well, we're so lucky to have Sue Ozdemir here with us today. She's the CEO of Exro. And we've talked before with Josh Sobel, who's the CCO of the company. But Sue's the CEO. It's always good to hear from the head of the company. And we've got lots of questions. But I guess my first question for our audience is, what is Exro Technologies?
We've got an optimized control through an in-depth way of controlling motors and batteries.
Yeah, I've heard you put it before. You're kind of the brains behind the motors in a vehicle.
Yeah, so coming from the motor industry, I really look at the inverter and the power electronics as the brain of the system, because motors are great pieces of technology. They've been around for a really long time, but they really can't be dynamic without an inverter or a controller.
And so I like your motto, I think it is, which is minimum energy, maximum results. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you. It took us a while, but we kind of hit it and everybody lit up when we said it. And for us, it represents, of course, the technology, what we're doing. We're going farther on a single charge. We're pulling more load. But it also represents who we are as a company, trying to be smart about the strategic steps that we take for success.
So I think people who are a little bit familiar with electric cars will know that electric motors are already pretty efficient. They're usually up in the 90% efficiency. So how are you able to squeeze more efficiency out of a already very efficient piece of technology?
Yeah, so what we're doing is system optimization. So what we're doing is taking some physics of electric motors and applying it to the drive side. So we're not physically making the motor more efficient, we're making the system more efficient. And whether that's the result of being able to get a more power dense system, you're able to reduce your power size or eliminate a gearbox or just change your configuration, is really dependent on the powertrain, but it's an overall system efficiency.
Now, since you've come on board with the company, you basically, it sounds like what was going on for many years was research, right? You guys were trying to figure out how to do this. And then it seems like you came on board right about the time when you were ready to go commercial. So can you tell us, what has the change been like going from a research kind of company to now a commercialized company?
Yeah, it's been fantastic. It's definitely a tough journey as you take something that's this great piece of technology, our patents, and bring it into a form that the market wants, especially with our target market being mobility. It's such a fast-moving industry. We've got to keep up with that as well. So for us, it's really been about listening to the customers, listening to the market trends. And what we've done in the past 18 months is really, for me, I look at it as a whole new Exro. We've totally transformed what we were doing in that R&D and in that lab, and now made a product that is a replacement for what's in the market, bringing more performance and in a cost-effective platform.
What I've noticed is that you guys have really grown your number of partnerships. I think a lot of people caught on when you guys started working with Zero motorcycles, because that's a well-known brand. But there's a lot of brands that you've started working with, both in e-bikes, motorcycles, cars, and now it sounds like fleet vehicles like electric buses. Can you walk us through maybe some of your latest partnerships?
For sure. So thank you for pointing that out. It's been a really big piece of my vision for the company, is to really show the versatility and the scalability of the product. Being that it's a drive, we can really adapt. It's about pulling the right people together and the right timing. And our partnerships with Zero is going very well. We're on track to deliver our demo units to them this quarter. We've got the partnership with C Electric, which is transforming by retrofitting vehicles for UPS and fleet and delivery. We've got a garbage truck going out to C Electric in the third quarter, and then a delivery truck hopefully by the end of this year into the first few weeks of the new year. Yesterday, we just announced a new partnership with Vicinity Motor Corp, which is a small size bus that has a large market share and is really growing into the EV space. We have a light duty motorcycle with our partner Land, who's undergoing testing right now and bringing out just a phenomenal new bike. So, we're really able to scale from that small two-wheel recreational vehicle up to a Class 8 garbage truck or a semi-truck. We could do larger with the right partner and testing equipment. And so it's really just a demonstration of where the product works. And as soon as we get it out into operation and we're actually deploying, we're seeing a lot of interest for what we bring. There's nothing else on the market today that can bring the benefits that we do.
So I'm trying to picture if I'm a newish kind of company, let's say Arcimoto or Aptera Motors, or even like Lighthorse we just spoke to recently, and I'm trying desperately to come out with my new products, right? And so there's all these factories I got to worry about and getting customers. Why would I want to stop and talk to you guys? It just seems like I'd want to just focus on getting that product out the door. What's the advantage if I were to talk to you guys about becoming a partner?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. The timing is definitely a really intricate piece of this puzzle. But the reason why they'd want to talk to us is really we are not just the next generation. We are a whole new generation of inverters. So we are delivering what they need out of a control. We're letting it, manage that powertrain for them, but in a whole new way. And so if you think about a garbage truck, the ability to pull up the hill, to have great ability, is the difference between being able to make 3 stops or 4. So there's a real return on investment for our customers, and it's very individually rated. A high performance vehicle is going to have a faster quarter mile. Who doesn't want the fastest car when you're looking for high performance? A fleet delivery truck, we don't talk about it enough in the industry. We look at the ratings and say it can go X kilometers or so many miles. But the reality is when it gets out in the real world and it's going up and down hills and it's facing snow and rain and it's pulling a whole load of garbage or a whole load of packages, it's not lasting as long as it needs to. And so I think what we're doing is really solving those real world issues for our customers. So, sometimes we have to fit into that zone. We have to take time to do it. But, that's why we have a good working capital to be able to do that. We have the right resources. So we'll just kind of keep putting our foot forward.
So using that example of like a big truck that's going to have to, either haul desirable items like delivery or garbage, away from people, and going up and down the hills like you talk about, how does Exro help with that? I mean, I think a lot of people on this channel are familiar with electric motors. It's great. You get torque from 0 RPM. There's no revving. There's nothing to worry about. And so to me, I'm thinking like, well, in my, Leaf or my Model 3, I put my foot on the accelerator and I'm rocketing it away. Obviously, it's not a big truck. What's the difference and why would Exro help?
So what happens when you put your foot to the metal on your Leaf, but you're going up a really steep hill? You're gonna feel that decline in the power of your vehicle. And that's really where Exro would kick in. So our drive would take that traditional way of managing it, and now it will dynamically sense that you're putting your foot to the metal and you need to go up the hill. So you need speed and torque at the same time. And that's where we have an issue with the mobility industry, because they can't balance that with the existing powertrains. With ours, the controller would kick in and dynamically sense that need and optimize at every point of the torque curve. As you go up, as you go down. So as you go back down, you're going to need less torque, but you want to go fast, on that point. So that's really the difference. And I think you hit it exactly. It's not that things aren't performing or that the technology in the market isn't the best, but as fast as electric vehicles are coming to market, we have to be even faster. The net zero targets are right in front of us. And I think we call it next gen, but really it's what's needed now to be able to make this change for the world.
And so, in the example of, say, going up a steep hill, and maybe it's not my Leaf, maybe it's a garbage truck full of garbage, so it's very heavy. You apply power to the motor, and maybe it's not going to be going up the hill quite as fast as you want. Wouldn't one solution be to just add a gear shift to a lower gear? We've done it in gas cars. We've done it on bicycles. I think we're used to shifting gears. Why not just do that?
Yeah, it's true. You could put in a gearbox. You could also increase your battery size. There's a couple of mechanical solutions that would accomplish what you want. In the end, for the most part, the projects that we've seen, you still won't get that full power. So you're still going to go up that hill at less than full power. And the other thing is then you're increasing weight. So as you increase the rate, you're going to have now another problem, because now you're overweight of the vehicle. Where with our controller, what happens is you can actually gear electrically or electronically through the Exro controller, which means that you're going to be able to reduce weight. So we actually enable a smaller motor, we enable smaller gearing or no gearing, and so you're not just getting the performance, you're getting cost savings from less mechanical components, and you're getting a lighter weight vehicle. Sometimes, we find that the vehicle weight stays exactly the same, but for the most part, it's a lighter weight vehicle.
Wow. So how do you electronically gear a motor? I mean, that's something I've never heard of before.
Yeah, that's kind of what we do. I mean, it's actually based on the physics of electric motors called coil switching. Our patents cover the physics of coil switching in an innovative way. So they're integrating it into a drive. It is a completely new topology of drive, meaning that there's not another style of inverter on the market. It's not just a regular three-phase inverter. It's an entirely new design that encompasses all of our technology, our algorithms, and it's that combination of control. So really what we're doing is, again, going back to that brain of the system. So we're telling that motor how to behave in the best position on every spot of that torque curve.
I can imagine that Jesse and I started a, e-bike company or a motorcycle company right now, that we wouldn't be thinking about your technology right now. We'd be so focused on the motors and the batteries and getting all that right. But that at some point, if we were successful, we'd be like, how can we get more out of this?
Well, and especially if all of our competitors were also working on their batteries and their motors, and all of a sudden we go, oh, we're not the only fish in this pond anymore. So yeah, I'd definitely be thinking about how we can get ahead of the competition.
So has that changed your conversations, or have you noticed a change in conversations with companies as they kind of shift from focusing on, batteries and motors to then going like, oh yeah, we kind of didn't think we needed this, but now we do. Or we might have thought, oh, there's plenty of suppliers like Exro out there. There's lots of, motor controllers, because we've heard of a lot of motor controller companies when we've been working on our projects, but they're really simple. They're just, they're like linear curves and stuff. What you're talking about is completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. It's not like we've created an inverter. Inverters are technology. What we've created is a new style of inverter. And so I think that, the smart customers are the ones that are always looking to stay ahead of the market, to differentiate, to make sure that they're ahead of the game. We've definitely noticed a difference in increased demand over the past few months as we too evolve as a company. Coming from R&D, we're not quite into operational validation yet. We've got Land, who has it in the bike. We've got Potencia out of Mexico, who has it going into a car. C Electric will have it in something before the end of the year. So we've got a couple of applications. So we're getting very close to that next kind of stage for Exro. And so I think as we get to that stage, we're gaining a lot more attention. We've got a great pipeline. Josh and the team are actively out there, excited and talking to customers. So we found that people are really interested now. Like any new technology, you've got to get through those first few stages. Hey, is this real? Is this really what you're doing? Once we're able to share the data, with customers, they're under NDA, so it's easy for us to share data. We go from a simulation to an actual test bench result. Then it progresses pretty quickly for us from there.
So, electric motors have been around for over 100 years at this point, and they've mostly operated the same the whole time. Now you're coming along with this new technology. Let's say I get turned on to this because of Exro. I hear about Exro and I say, oh, that sounds cool. I'm a genius. I'm the most smart person in the world. And I say, oh, I have figured out how to do it myself because of what you were working on. What stops me, the genius who figured it out after you did, from being able to eat your lunch, so to speak?
Right. So I've been with the company for 18 months, but even before I joined, Exro takes its patent strategy really, really seriously. So we work with a top law firm that works with us to build our strategy to protect our patents. And so we're doing everything we can to do that, right from how we write them, how we keep them, how we maintain them, to how we deal with a customer. So, NDAs, non-use forms, things that protect us. The other side of it is it's a smart world. So we continue to innovate. We like to think that we are perpetual innovators. So we're constantly thinking of new things to innovate. We're always filing and kind of building on our tech, and we're so far ahead of it. And then, of course, it is great technology, but believe me, great technology only comes to life through great people. And so the team that we've acquired is the reason why we're accomplishing what we've accomplished. We put a lot of effort into our team. I'd like to say that almost every member of our team has been handpicked. I interview every single member after my team does to make sure that they're a great fit. And so putting all of that together isn't just easy. So, maybe some genius is going to go figure something out and, in 10 years from now, we'll see something that's similar. But by then we'll have so many other generational upgrades, I think we'll continue to be first to market pioneers for this.
Now, let's talk about your partnership with Zero Motorcycles, because I know we have a lot of Zero Motorcycle fans watching right now, and we've checked out and reviewed their bikes, and they're fantastic, and the motors are so small and so powerful. What can Exro bring to something that's already so great?
Yeah, and Zero's a fantastic example of a company that already had best-in-class technology, looking to be ahead of the game, looking to stay as top innovators. So for them, they really want to make sure that their user experience is fantastic. They want to make sure that their users continue to be the best. So I'm not going to go into the details of the deal just because we can't go into all the details of what they're trying to come up with, but I'll just say that they're just continuing to try to make sure that their bike is the best experience for their riders. And so if we can bring them a little bit more torque, a little bit more speed, a little bit more range, or a combination of that together, it's a great piece for them. So that's what we're doing. We've got a few Zero bikes in our facility right now, and so we're going to have some fun trialing and riding in the coming weeks, and hopefully we'll be sharing that with everybody by the end of the quarter.
Oh, wow. So that's, when do you think customers will actually start to see Exro's technology in Zero? Is that something you can talk about?
So what I'll say is from an overall perspective, how our timeline works is we go from a design stage into what we call customer deployment. So that's when we hand it off to Zero. They're going to do an enormous amount of testing on their own, validating what we've showed them off of our test bench, putting it on the road. It goes into functional safety, which we have a team for functional safety as well. So they'll work together to make sure everything's working exactly as it is. Again, picture that brain. If you're going to go in for a brain operation, you're not just going to go in and be out in 30 minutes. So it's very similar. They're going to put it on the road, see how it stops at the lights, how it brakes. And then once they're done that, then it will go to their approval. So I think the earliest we'll see it in a Zero bike is probably by their 2024 model. We have some test bikes that we're working on right now.
Now, you guys also have another set of technologies that I don't think we talked to Josh about, and I don't even know if they were released then when we talked to him, which is on the battery side. You have a whole battery management side. Can you talk to us at all about that?
Yeah, I can give you a little bit about that. We haven't fully launched it, but I'll kind of tell you where we are. So if you think about our control technologies and how we're optimizing that for the motor side, it's really the ability to go right to the coil stage, right to the heart of the motor. So we use that synergy for the batteries, and we started looking right to the heart of a battery, so the cells. And when we look at optimizing and controlling the cells, what we found was that we could use the physics of multiplexing to come up with an innovative way to manage the cells. So what we'll be launching is our battery control system, which is an energy storage system enabled by an Exro inverter. And so it will be a completely new type of energy storage system where you don't need a separate battery management and inverter. You'll have just a battery control system. And we'll be able to do a better state of health, better state of charge. And really what that's going to do is we can use second life batteries. And I think that's a big portion. It's not the whole business, but it's a big portion of the business because as a clean tech company, a lot of what we do, a lot of the DNA of our team, our culture is about finding better ways for the future. And so as we look and we say there's going to be this enormous amount of electric vehicles, electric everything, electric mobility, we also have to admit that there's going to be an enormous amount of batteries. And recycling is great. I like to think of it just like the water bottles. You're going to end up with things in landfills. You're going to end up with things in garbage cans. So whatever we can do to repurpose, that's really the most important thing is how do you repurpose, not just recycle. And so we're repurposing batteries that come out of specific types of vehicles. We're using first life batteries in some applications where we can. And so it's going to be a full business function. And we'll be launching that business in the second half of this year.
Now, is this battery management both for mobile batteries, but also for grid storage? Is that what I'm hearing? Or
yeah, so we're going to do very targeted on energy storage, and we're going to be doing it more in the industrial space.
Well, that could be really huge because as we just heard from the earnings call from Tesla the other day, Elon was like doubling down on lithium ion batteries as, a solution to our energy grid problem. So that could be really huge.
Absolutely, it could.
Now, I get the sense, and this could be completely wrong because I don't know all of your partnerships, but my sense is that you're working with a lot of smaller mobile companies. So, working on motorcycles and so forth, e-bikes, and then also fleet stuff. So bigger garbage trucks and e-buses. But in the kind of middle space, like the cars, the light vehicles, I mean, I've heard, you're working with the Mexican company Potencia, but I'm wondering why you're not working with or at least that I haven't heard you're working with the big players, because it seems like they're all trying to get their cars converted over from ICE to electric. And it seems like if I were one of them, I would be calling you guys up. Now, is it just that you can't say, or is it that they just aren't interested? Any information you can give us about that?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. So, I think that as you build a company, not just the product, as you build the company, we want to be a market leader. That's definitely our kind of North Star, is that we're going to replace incumbents and become a market leader for inverters in the industry, mobility to start, but who knows where we'll go in the future. So as we look to that, we really wanted to kind of make those steps so that we have the strongest foundation possible, so that in 3 years from now, when you're interviewing me, we're talking about all the great things that we've accomplished in that year. So as you think with that, when you think about a major automotive, they look for a couple key things. Yeah, they're looking for great tech, but they're also looking for tech that can continue to supply them. So it's not just about, do you have this great tech? If a major automotive manufacturer is going to utilize us as a controller, they want to know that we have the factory to produce for years to come. They want to know that that factory is going to meet their quality standards. They're going to want to know that we have our supply chain locked in. So over the past 18 months, we have recruited a top VP of supply chain. We've got a new VP of manufacturing that will come on board. We've just announced our new 37,000 square foot facility. We're going to have a state-of-the-art SMT line, and it's going to have all of the standards that you need for automotive approved product. The next stage of doing that, of course, is if you're new, if you're doing it from total greenfield, you have to be able to show them that you know how to produce. So really what we're doing is non-automotive first. That will be ready by the end of this year, supplying companies like Land. And then we'll move into being able to have those types of partnerships. So one of our milestones is to have a strategic partner on board by the end of this year. That would be about an 18-month to two-year partnership for us, and get us into automotive manufacturing of the inverter within 2 years.
So let's just say, hypothetically, you were able to land a partnership with, say, Tesla. What, just generally, do you think that you would be able to do to some of their cars? Would it be most advantageous to focus on some of their lower end vehicles that have smaller batteries? Would you be working on the Plaid? What would you want to work on? What do you think would be able to do best at?
Yeah, if I was working with Tesla, I would go for one of their models. I think it's the Plaid that has the one motor in the front and two motors in the back. And the reason being that, of course, if we could help them to reduce that motor, the number of motors that they have, that would be a huge savings for them. And I think when we think to Tesla, they are a market leader in EV. So of course they're ahead from a performance perspective. They're driving down cost. So if they looked at us and said, hey, we can pull out a motor, or we can reduce our motors to reduce that powertrain, they could enable a system which remains cost competitive for them, allowing them to maintain their market position. Versus, if we start working with a number of other company names that are trying to deliver that performance.
Now, what's it like coming from, you used to be a president at GE, their motor division, I believe, and what's it like coming from a big, giant corporation to a startup?
Yeah, so I spent over 9 years at GE. I worked my way up from a Western Canada sales leader through 5 different promotions. I was the CEO of GE Small Industrial Motors, and in 2017, early 2018, I led the acquisition of our division to a group called Wolong, and Wolong has a 10-year branding agreement. And so I was the CEO of GE Industrial Motors, a Wolong company. So it's been total night and day. I wasn't looking for work when they came out to recruit me. And really what it was about for me was that ability to go really quickly and come up with something that could definitely change the way an industry performs. And I really wanted to be a piece of that. The fact that they had all the tech working and they needed to commercialize it was a great fit for me. It's been completely different. It's really inspirational to stand in a facility where you have, right now we have about 40 employees that are all driven to that same goal, that everybody's as excited. When we fail a test, we fail it together. When we pass a test, we pass it together. And I think that's just a really inspirational place to be. And I'm really lucky to have been here for the past 18 months. It's also really exciting to think about the path ahead and how much more we can accomplish. So that for me was a big piece of coming, was the tech was working, and how do we take that to market?
When I hear from people who've been in the industry for a long time, like Sandy Munro, and he talks about big companies and how they move slower than startups do. I don't want you to throw any shade on your past companies, but in your experience, in a big company, can they move at the speed that a company like Exro is moving?
Oh, absolutely not. And I don't think that's a negative thing to put on any of those legacy companies. I work here, but I believe that GE is still one of the best companies in the world. They have a great business and they have great products that have been in the market for hundreds of years. But when you think about how they have to function, they're very driven by the revenues that they have to make. So, if something can't get to revenue, for me in my division, if it couldn't get to revenue in 18 months, I couldn't get the budget to develop it. Where now we have that same pressure to get to revenue, definitely for our shareholders, for our stakeholders, getting to revenue and profitability is a big piece. But we've also got this belief in what we're doing, and we've got the belief from our shareholders and what we can accomplish. So we're able to allot a lot more of our resource to R&D than a big company always can. And also we don't have any we don't have any box that we're trying to fit in right now. Where in a big company like that, you have to fit into a box and it's very hard to change that. We're making our box. We can move those boundaries, we can move those walls, we can do what's right for the business to take share.
Now, speaking of your shareholders, recently back in March, there was a short seller group, a research group called Mariner. They put out a hit piece basically against Exro, made a lot of claims, and I thought you guys did a really good job of responding to them, because we've seen this before with groups like Hindenburg when they made some claims against Nikola, and those claims kind of stuck because, well, a lot of them seemed to be true, but this seemed to be a little different to me. Can you give us some idea of what it felt like to be kind of the subject of a hit piece like that?
Didn't feel good. It felt horrible. That said, you know what? Things come. That's part of business. That's part of being the CEO. That's part of running things. And good things come and bad things come. And we've got to be able to just face it right on and keep going. So for me, it was very much about the team. And a lot of people are surprised when I talk about that. But the first thing I did was make sure that they understood what this was and how this would affect us and the reality of that. And they were fantastic right from the get-go. I mean, when you're out in the lab and you're working on the drive that's now being produced, the report kind of doesn't mean anything. But from a market perspective, when a shareholder that can't see that can't be in our walls, that can't see what's happening, it's scary. And I think that the shorts are an unfortunate reality of public markets. And hopefully the world finds a better way to deal with it in the future, because it doesn't seem right that can be the way that it happens. But I'm thankful that we were very transparent going into it. Anything that they said, we were able to quickly respond to. We're an open book for our shareholders. It's very easy to see what we're doing, and I think for us that's really helped. But it's still not a great place.
I think it's a kind of a weird time in the EV investment space, in the clean tech space, because it feels like there's money pouring in and pulling out really quickly. It's just like, oh, that looks cool. Oh, no, let's move it over here. And it feels like a lot of people are investing who don't really know what they're investing in. It just is like a trendy thing. What would you say to those investors who are looking to invest? They've just heard about you guys, let's say, and they're like, oh, these guys are in clean tech, they're in EV, but I don't really understand them. They don't make a car, they don't make a battery. So I guess I'll move on. What would you say to that investor?
Right. I'd say two things. Our performance has really spoke for itself. We've hit every milestone that we've set over the past 18 months. And so I think that's really the first thing, is that we've built credibility. We have institutional shareholders now that have looked in and verify for us. We have analysts that have done their due diligence to look in and see that we're doing what we say we're doing. Outside of that, I think that what you really want to think about when you think about Exro is you've got that exciting car, but without a motor to run an electric car, you're not going to run it. And without a drive, that motor's going to be pretty dumb in an electric car. It's not going to know how to perform everything the right way. So all we're doing is making a smarter, better drive. We're not reinventing the wheel here. What we're doing is making this better. And I think that if you follow us a little bit and you watch the progression of the company, you'll see that we're building those stepping stones for success.
Sue, thank you so much for joining us today and explaining more about Exro and where you guys are headed. I think this is really interesting tech because, like you said, it's not, I think I was under the impression early on that lots of people are working on this kind of tech, but to hear that this is, it's IP'd, This is not something that you're going to find just off the shelf somewhere else. You guys are working on a very unique set of problems, and that you're going into a bunch of different industries, not just like e-bikes, not just like motorcycles, but all of it is really cool. And we're really excited to be watching you guys.
Thank you guys so much. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Disruptive Investing. Be sure to like the video and subscribe. Click the bell button to be notified when new videos come out.